There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes after you've been warm with someone for a long time. Not the tiredness of hard work, the tiredness of having opened something in yourself and then discovering slowly that the person on the other side was measuring the opening, not honoring it. You replay the moments, the coffee they remembered you liked, the question they asked about your father, the way they seemed to arrive exactly when you needed someone to arrive, and now you're sitting with a feeling you can't quite name because it isn't only anger, it's something quieter, the sense that you don't know anymore what was real. If you felt that, this is for you, because that feeling has a structure, and once you can see the structure, you stop blaming your instincts and start understanding what was actually done to you. In the last decade, law enforcement and investigative journalists uncovered an operation so precise in its psychology that investigators began studying it the way doctors study a pathogen, not to spread it, but to understand how it kills. It's called pig butchering. The name comes from a phrase used internally by the criminal networks running it. You fatten the pig before the slaughter. The target is fattened on trust. Months of it, careful, warm, patient trust, and then the slaughter. What makes this worth examining isn't the scale of the fraud, though the scale is enormous. What makes it worth examining is what the people running it were forced to learn, and then script, and then teach to others. They had to reverse engineer trust itself, and in doing so they created something that functions like an X-ray of how genuine human connection is built, so that someone could build a fake one that passed the test. To defend yourself, you need to see what they saw. Here's what the script actually contained, and these were scripts, written out, taught to workers, refined over time. The first instruction was to mirror, not mirror in the loose sense of being agreeable. Mirror precisely, repeat back the person's own words in a slightly different arrangement, so they feel understood without being able to say exactly why. A target mentions they grew up near water. Within a day or two, the person they're talking to online mentions that they've always found something calming about being near the sea. A target mentions frustration with their job. The scammer doesn't commiserate loudly. They say that sounds like a lot of weight to carry, which is exactly the sentence the target was trying to say about themselves. The effect is a feeling of being seen. But what's actually happening is that the listener has become a mirror, angled just right, reflecting you back to yourself and letting you fall in love with the reflection. The second instruction was to manufacture a gradient of commitment. Small asks, then slightly larger asks, then asks that carry weight. The first week, nothing is asked. The second week, a small personal question is posed and the target answers, and in answering, they've invested something. Then the scammer offers something personal in return. A disclosed vulnerability. A secret. By the time any real request arrives, the target has already made dozens of small choices to continue. And here is where the psychology is almost cruel in its accuracy. Once a person has made many small choices in one direction, they tend to make the next choice in the same direction, not because they've been lied to, because they've been consistent. Epictetus wrote, roughly, that we aren't disturbed by what happens to us, but by our opinion of what happens to us. The scam doesn't disturb, it cultivates, it builds the opinion slowly, from the inside. Think about someone you trusted who let you down. Not the moment of betrayal, but the months before it. Can you find the gradient, the small things they remembered? The way they disclosed something that made you disclose something larger? The way each exchange seemed to build on the last, until your guard wasn't down so much as it had been, quietly, patiently moved aside. You didn't miss the signs. There weren't signs in the ordinary sense, there was a process, and the process was designed not to look like one. The third instruction is the one that lands hardest. The workers were told to manufacture vulnerability. At a calibrated moment, they were to share something that appeared to cost them. A difficult childhood detail. A fear they claimed not to tell many people. A moment of doubt offered as though the target had earned the right to hear it. This wasn't spontaneous. It was a move, timed to deepen the target's sense of intimacy. Because when someone appears to trust you with something painful, you feel trusted. And feeling trusted makes you want to become trustworthy in return. You lean in. You protect them. You feel the relationship has reached a new level. Except the real thing was a prop. Picture a woman named Sarah, 43, a bookkeeper in a mid-sized city, sitting at her kitchen table on a Wednesday evening with her phone in her hands. She's been talking to someone she met through a language learning app for 11 weeks. He told her last week, quietly, that he had lost a child some years ago and had never quite found his footing since. She cried reading it. She told her sister, "I think this one is actually honest." And the sister said, "What do you know about him?" And Sarah said, "I know what matters. She knows what was given to her. She does not know what was withheld. And that is the structure of the trap. Trust is built on what is shared. Exploitation is built on controlling what is shared and when, and in what sequence, and for what effect. Most people who build trust with you aren't running a script. They remember your coffee order because you matter to them, not because they're tracking your preferences. They share their pain because they need to, not because it's timed. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The behaviors are identical from the outside. Mirroring feels like empathy. Graduated investment feels like deepening friendship. Disclosed vulnerability feels like intimacy. The mechanism is the same. What differs is the direction of care. This is the thing most people miss when they think about manipulation. They're looking for bad behavior, a red flag, an inconsistency. But engineered trust doesn't leave those. It leaves warmth and memory and attentiveness and patience, all the things you'd want. Which is why, when it unravels, the question people ask themselves is, how did I not see it? And the honest answer is, you weren't supposed to. The architecture was built around your instincts, not against them. Most people who say they've learned to read people better after a betrayal haven't gotten better at reading people. They've gotten better at being suspicious. Those aren't the same skill. So what does the real distinction look like? Genuine connection has a direction. It moves towards you as a full person. Your inconvenient opinions, your boring weeks, your moods that don't serve them, the version of you that needs something, instead of giving something. Engineered dependency has a direction too. It moves toward leverage. Watch what happens when you're less useful, when you cancel, when you're low. The person building genuine connection stays. Not perfectly, not without frustration, but they stay, and they're still curious about you when you've got nothing interesting to offer. The person building leverage recalibrates. You'll feel it as a shift in temperature, a slightly longer gap before the reply. The warmth was conditional, and the conditions just changed. There is one more layer to this. The workers in those compounds, the people executing those scripts, many of them were trafficked. They were not predators who chose this work. They were people who were deceived into a situation they couldn't leave, forced to deceive others so that someone else could profit. Which means that at the heart of this particular darkness, you find ordinary people made into instruments, doing to strangers exactly what was done to them. Trust, weaponized all the way down. Exploitation doesn't require a monster. It requires a system that learns how connection works and removes the care from the center of it. What you've been carrying, if someone built your trust and then used it, isn't naivety. It's the cost of being the kind of person who still extends warmth. And the answer isn't to stop extending it. The answer is to know what genuine connection actually costs the other person. It costs them their full attention on a boring Tuesday. It costs them staying when you're difficult. It costs them the willingness to be changed by you, not just to gather you. Real trust leaves both people a little altered. If you look back and see that only you were altered, and they remain perfectly composed, perfectly positioned, perfectly in control of what they gave and when, you weren't in a connection. You were in a construction. Carry one thing forward. When a relationship feels warm and close, ask yourself, does this person show up when I'm inconvenient? That single question cuts through every script, every calibrated vulnerability, every precisely timed disclosure. Scripts only work when you're giving them what they need. Your inconvenience is not in the script. And the people who stay for it, who stay curious about you, even when you're a little difficult or low or dull, those people aren't performing connection. They're inside one. You can tell the difference now. That changes how you build and who you let build with you.